Is Peter Stark a thing? By Forrestwarriorz. Chapter 3. Clint. Clint hadn't really been in the compound since he was allowed back home. Though he could, he enjoyed the time he could spend with his family, and especially his kids. Yet he knew nothing could make up for leaving his family after he said he was retiring. Well, now he was officially retired. However, about a week ago, he got a message from Stark, asking if he wanted to come by the compound with his family. Saying how Scott and his daughter would be present that day, along with his intern he was being awfully vague about. Talking about how the kid needed to get away from the bustling city and actually focus on his homework. When Clint brought this up to Laura, as he wanted her to come along, Laura had said that she did consider Tony as the fatherly type. That made no sense to Clint. He knew the guy and knew he was absolutely disliking kids, but perhaps Laura was right. Clint and Tony never really got along, but Laura liked him and he was friendly with the Barton kids when Clint was locked up that brief time. Perhaps Laura just knew his teammate better than he did. Clint refused to acknowledge that hurt. It didn't matter though. He could work on fixing that, improving their relationship. Especially with the knowledge that Tony was close with a teenager. That Scott heavily implied was his son, who they never knew about. It's Tony Stark. He wouldn't be able to hide a child unless he never knew about the kid. Perhaps he found out about the kid during the Accords ordeal, and therefore wanted to keep him away from each other. Which, honestly, was fair. Clint sighed softly as he watched his kids chat with each other about the compound. Laura was on the phone to her sister about something or other. He could see why Tony didn't want them to meet the kid. They all left him, and therefore it could really shock the poor kid if he knew them and suddenly didn't. "Look!" Cooper cried as they looked out the window. "Is that the compound?" Clint turned his head to look out the window of the jet. His heart felt lighter and simultaneously heavier. It was. The building still gleamed brightly in the sunlight, shining as though it hadn't been tainted by the Avengers' mishaps. That it was a second home. It was meant to be a second home at least. We still have a living area here, but do we actually deserve such a treatment? "Of course it is," Lila snapped. "Where else would we be? Willy Wonka's chocolate factory?" "I don't know. Seems like a cool place to go. Can you imagine all the candy within the building?" Cooper sounded as though he was currently having a daydream about exploring the chocolate factory. Clint didn't blame his son. He was all for a lovely candy factory experience. "Of course you only focus on the candy aspect," Lila muttered and rolled her eyes at her brother. As the jet landed in the hangar, Clint looked out the window and paused. He stared at the gathered crowd to see a teenager standing with Tony, staring at the jet and looking conflicted and unsure of his presence. Clint wondered if this was actually the teenager. He figured that it would have to be, as the only other kid is Scott's daughter. "Of course I did." Cooper stuck his tongue out at her. Laura chuckled. "I wonder where they got their immaturity from, She looked amused at Clint, who huffed and rolled his eyes. "Are you implying that I made our children amazing? If so, then thank you for the lovely compliment, love." Clint teased as he threw his arm around her shoulders and pressed a kiss to her cheek. She chuckled and Clint could hear the disgusted noises that their kids let out. "Barton? Stark?" Clint and Laura stepped off of the jet with their kids walking behind them. Cooper was carrying Nathaniel and Lila ran forward to Cassie. Clint does recall her name and gush about something or other. The teenager eyed Lila and then looked at Cooper with an intrigued look. Cooper adjusted Nathaniel and the teen's eyes softened and stepped forward. "Hey there, you good?" he asked. Cooper pursed his lips and then glanced towards his parents before nodding. "Nate's just heavy." "Cooper is just weak," Lila called from the side and Cooper shot her annoyed look. "No, I'm not!" The teen looked amused and then finally turned to face Clint and Laura. His relaxed posture stiffened and he quickly stepped back to stand beside Tony, eyeing Clint carefully. Something about the look reminded him of Spider-Man, but he quickly pushed it away. Spider-Man was a bit arrogant and a snarky guy. Clint had observed him here and there. But this teenager just looked uneasy and nervous. Nothing about Spider-Man gave off a nervous persona. "Clint, Laura, kiddos?" Tony looked towards the teenager. "This is Peter Parker, one of Stark Industries' interns, and my own personal intern. You'll see him a lot around the compound, and if you want something fixed, you can go to him." He sent a smile towards the teenager. "Peter Parker. Don't fanboy about Hawkeye, kid." Peter made a face. Sorry, I was gushing about how intricate the style of bow was. I wanted to experiment with some designs with it. Clint raised an eyebrow. You were working on my bow? Peter nodded and rubbed the back of his neck. Clint noticed the soft blush rose to his skin, spreading across his neck, cheeks and ears. It caused him to look younger than he probably was. Clint reckoned he was about 16. Well, yeah, I like bows, but I never really had the chance to use one myself. Lila piped up. Daddy is teaching me archery. I'm sure he can teach you as well. I wouldn't ask, Peter said, biting his lip out of nervousness. Clint shot a look towards Tony, trying to gauge his reaction to the entire thing. However, Tony didn't look too fazed by it. Something in his eyes sparkled that was very akin to pride and trust. Clint suddenly wondered what their exact relationship was. Not sexual, because honestly Clint did know Tony well enough that Tony would actively take out child predators. It didn't seem like an intern-mentor relationship. Tony clearly trusted the kid a lot, letting him mess around with weapons, trusting his skill with technology to fix anything and the fact that he was allowed to stay at the compound. This Tony Stark was a completely different person than Clint had known before, but had he really known his teammate? Clint smiled towards Peter. I can teach you. Perhaps. Perhaps you can even show what you've been working on. Good luck with that. Scott snickered from where he stood. If there's one thing I have discovered about being here is that Peter is incredibly shy about his work. Hates praise. Just ask Tony for clarification. Tony rolled his eyes and Peter's blush deepened. It's really nothing, though. Kid, why don't you take Cassie and the Barton kiddos and show them around the compound? Tony suggested. You look like your face is about to be engulfed in flames. Peter nodded stiffly. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I'll make sure that there's plenty of food for you, Tony said as Peter held out his arms for Nathaniel, who willingly went to him. Clearly the kid didn't see anything bad about being in his vicinity. Also, Cooper was looking like he was about to strain. Don't lose sight of the kids. When have I ever done such a thing? Tony didn't answer, but clearly Peter wasn't expecting one as he led Cooper and Lila out of the hangar. Cassie was bounding around, gushing about the compound to the others, and Nathaniel was flinching away, hiding in Peter's arm. He wasn't too bothered about it all, and Peter seemed to joke around with Cassie, buzzing like a bee. Inside joke, definitely. Clint just watched, and didn't even notice that Laura had gone to speak with Pepper and Hope. Scott and Tony seemed to hold a silent conversation, waved them on after him, planning to show Laura and Clint around the compound and to their rooms. Clint glanced at Scott as they fell into a step together. You never really told me that the kid was Tony's. He isn't, Scott said and made a face. Well, not from what they've said, but perhaps he doesn't know. That's what Hope suggested. Clint furrowed his brows. That would explain why Nat and I never found anything on the kid. Peter Parker. It's suspicious, isn't it? Yeah, is Rhodes here? Yep. Clint nodded to himself. Would he know the truth? Scott shrugged. Perhaps. Why? Are you going to go digging? No, just using the information we're given. Clint clarified. Want to help? Count me in. I'd love to gain enough information on Iron Dad, the new Dad Avenger. Scott laughed, and Clint had to agree with Scott's words. Time to put his SHIELD agent training to use. End of chapter. Hi guys, sorry for all the stumbling. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm still getting into the swing of things with this fic. The chapters are really short though. So anyway, yeah, I like that. And the bit with Willy Wonka's chocolate factory was just funny. Though there is a Cadbury factory not too far from where I live, I think. And I've been considering visiting it, so maybe. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.